Hi everyone, it's Diane with Sew Batik, and today we're going to introduce the Sentosa Tank by Itch to Stitch that we've made from our jersey knit. Yesterday, I was able to finish this garment, and I have to tell you that it is really a fun treat to be able to wear it when I talk about a specific pattern and how we made the pattern. I am wearing the Sentosa Tank, and it has, let me talk a little bit about the style. It has an asymmetrical neckline. It's a very, very nice feature, plus 3 pleats that come straight out of that neckline, and they each come down a little different direction, which adds to the style and gives it a little bit of fullness to the tank. So the front is just a little full here, and then the back is perfectly straight across the bottom. That's the style of the Sentosa Tank. Like I mentioned, let's talk a little bit about the pattern. The pattern is written by Kenneth at Itch to Stitch, and all of her patterns are PDF download only. We have a link when we create our fashion duos and fashion packs. We put a link directly to this item on her website so that you can quickly go and purchase that, download that to make your own Sentosa Tank if you don't already have it. But her designs for this particular tank top is written for size 0. And I'm gonna grab the body measurements here so you know exactly kind of what the range is of this particular tank top. But the bust of a 00 is 31 1/8. And then, as I mentioned, all the way to the range of a size 40. And the bust, a regular bust, is a 60. So her patterns introduce a wider range of body styles, and they also include a regular bust and a full bust measurement guide for you, okay? And the finished size, I'm gonna give you some finished measurements here, and also what I used for my particular top as well. The finished garment size, when we're talking about a regular bust, and that's what I'm going to use here in my example, is a 30 7/8. So we're talking about a knit fabric that has slight negative ease. So we want it to fit, her intention is to fit snug because it is a knit. And then, so that's of a 00, and then size 40, to give you the range, is a 62 3/8. Now that is not a negative ease. That's just a couple more inches of give across your upper bust. The full bust option, the bust is a 33 3/4, which again is going to give you that ease to a 64 7/8. So if you're anywhere in that range, this is like the perfect tank top for you. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about what I used as my sizing and how I came up with that using our 72-inch wide Batik Cotton Jersey Knit. A little bit about our knit. Our knit is 100% cotton, and there's no lycra, no spandex. So the amount of stretch, the 2-way stretch that we have, is about 20%. And so I take that into consideration every time I work with a pattern that is specifically written for a jersey knit or a knit of any kind. And I know how I like my knit tops to fit me. I really don't like them to be too snug, but yet snug enough so they don't look like they're overwhelming. So when I take a look at these measurements that are in the pattern, I first go to, knowing that there's going to be no ease or negative ease, I go to my body measurements right directly to the finished garment measurements, and I match that up. I don't even really look at the body measurements to find my size. I look at the finished garment measurement section. And so I went there, I found that I'm going to be a 10, and then I look at my waist and I look at my hip and I decide how snug I want that to fit and make any adjustments. So that's what I did, and I pretty much stuck with a 10, except I loosened my hip area here so that it wasn't tight around my hip, and ended up grading that to be a 14 to give it a little bit of an extra flow. The one thing that I do, and this is just me, for my adjustments that I make with an itch to stitch pattern, is I have to have a smaller, even though my body size is a 10, my upper body needs to be a 6. I have to change my shoulders and the neckline and my arm openings to all be a 6 or an 8. And this happened to be a 6 on this particular garment. So it looks kind of funny when I print out the patterns, I tape them all together, and then I trace. I use my Swedish tracing paper and I trace. But what I do first is I take a pencil and I mark on top of that size line all the way around each pattern piece. So I know that I'm going from a 6 to a 10 to a 14. And then I follow that line on my Swedish tracing paper because I can see it very easily. So that's my little trick when I actually decide on what pattern size I'm going to use, okay? So take all of those things into consideration when you're thinking about this particular tank and the amount of stretch that your knit is, or recommends, I should say. So if you're using our Batik Cotton Jersey Knit, there's not a lot of stretch, so just take that into consideration. It's about 20% stretch. Except for the fabric, the only other thing that you need to have to make this particular garment, of course, is thread and your interfacing. The front facing and the back facing are full facings and are interfaced entirely. And then you'll need just a smidge more interfacing for securing your shoulder and your arm openings, because when working with knit, it's really nice to put just a little strip of interfacing or stay tape. Stay tape seems to be so hard to find these days. But I ended up just using a little bit of the extra interfacing, and I'll show you what I did there, to finish the edges of my arm openings and my shoulder. So that's it. That's what you need to make this particular garment. Now, let's get into a little bit about the pattern pieces themselves so that you can see how this is cut out, and then we'll talk a little bit about the construction. I'm going to show you the pattern pieces that I drafted using my Swedish tracing paper. And this is your traditional back piece. You lay it on the fold with your neck, your shoulder, your arm, and then whatever level of grade that you may or may not have added to the side of the pattern piece. There's also your, flip it around this way, your facing. This is the back facing, which is also placed on the fold. Then here's the fun part. The pattern piece for the front of this garment, because remember, we have an asymmetrical neckline plus the pleats. Well, that has to start wide open. And so this is what your pattern piece looks like, of course, you know, straight at the bottom. But before you start sewing this and putting your pleats together here, it's really an interesting pattern piece. You lay this right side up on top of your fabric that is also right side up, okay? And make sure you are recording all of your markings for the pleats. I do have one suggestion for those of you who are maybe not experienced PDF pattern printers, but I have to say that right here, I'm going to pick this piece right back up again, but right here, only print the layers of your PDF that equate to your size. Remember that this pattern is varying sizes. So from a 00 to, let's say, a 20, and then a 16 to a 40. When you print every single one of those lines, it is very difficult to follow this portion right here and which line you're actually going to follow. So I really recommend only print the size ranges. Like if, for example, I'm a 10. I printed the 10, the 12, no, the 8, 10, and 12 is what I printed, so that I could see exactly where I needed to trace my pleats and to cut this opening. Okay, and then of course we have the front facing as well, which looks like this, because you will have already put your pleats together. And so this is simply going to match your front of your garment once those pleats are done. Okay. The first thing, excuse me there, the first thing I want to talk to you about is the garment or the fabric layout. So I'm going to put up on the screen here a picture of how I laid out this pattern, and take a look at that. The main portion, your front of your garment, is on the left side with the facing right above it. And then over to the right side of this image, you're going to see that I folded the fabric in so that the right side of the fabric is inside, and follow the instructions on the layout of this pattern to position the pattern piece face down, your back pattern piece face down, so that you're getting all of the right direction here when you cut out your back and your back facing as well. I did have a little bit of fabric left over in the middle. And remember, I am 5'7". I lengthened my garment by 2 inches. And so it was about 29 inches or so in length. And I used 1 yard, 36 inches of our 72-inch wide fabric. I believe that out of 1 yard, it was really tight with my the front facing, and I would have preferred 1 1/8 yards. So we've created our fabric packs for this particular garment on our website to be 1 1/8 yards for sizes 0 to 20, and 1.5 yards for sizes 16 to 40. Simply because there's not enough fabric for the size ranges of 20 to 40 to get everything out of that 1 yard. You can see how tight it will be. We need just that little extra length in order to get those sizes out of that fabric. And also remember that if you're not working with our fabric, definitely follow the yardage requirements in the pattern, because that's written for 54-inch wide fabric. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to mention that I did for my garment was I took a moment, and I'm going to put up another picture here. I took a moment to simply use the interfacing from the garment to cut out my little strip, like my 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch strip of interfacing to go around the armholes and the shoulders, my shoulder seams. And what I do is I will cut out the facing, okay? I should demo this sometime, but I'll cut out the facing from the interfacing, and I'll leave the interfacing sitting on the table. Don't move it, because what you're gonna do is take out your piece, okay? Well, you've cut the angle out of your interfacing that matches your sleeve opening or your armhole opening. So cut a little strip along there, cut a little strip along the shoulder, both shoulders, and down your sleeve for both front and back, and you have your stay tape or interfacing to secure those portions of your garment before you start sewing everything together, so nothing will move on you. So do that little trick before you move your interfacing off your table. Okay, that was it about just getting everything ready to go for this pattern. And next, what I'd like to do is take you through a few steps of what I felt were worthy of a little bit more of a video or education on how to make and construct the garment. I did not take you through how to secure your pleats. That's self-evident in the instructions that are provided, as well as the side seams and things like that. But I'm going to take you through adding the facing and how we secure and finish off the openings to the arms. So let's take a look at that. I really love how the top stitching on each one of these pleats turned out. I just think this whole design is really so fun. And what we're going to do right now is I've laid the front right side up and the back right side up, of course, because they're attached. And we're going to attach the facing. And so with right sides together, pin around and start matching, I should say, each one of your shoulder seams. And remember, we pressed one seam to the back and one seam to the front, so they're going to join very nicely right in that seam line. And pin, I just use pins for this, just to, in a couple of spots, just to make sure that we're all lined up. And do the same thing for the other shoulder. And you'll see that I used black Silk Envy interfacing for my interfacing of the facing. And we'll pin around here. The interfacing comes in both black and white, and I really try to get as close as possible to the fabric color. And whenever we're putting together our fashion duos, when the garment requires interfacing, we always try to make sure that we're dealing with an interfacing, black or white, that really best matches the fabric. Okay, over here is the point, the low point of the front of the neckline, and so let's pin that together right there, and a couple more spots right around here. Everything really lines up beautifully between the facing and the main garment. And you can see here, I have put little marks, a white pencil mark, where the, from the pattern, those are indicators that they're going to match up with your front pleats on the main garment, and everything really matches beautifully. Here we go, a couple more pins. And then I'm going to go to my sewing machine and stitch all the way around the inside 3/8 of an inch, which is the seam allowance. We're going to circle this whole way and come back, and I'm going to take you through the process of clipping to make sure that we can turn this to have a really nice curve. Okay, now we have everything sewn all the way around, and what we're going to do next is clip. And I'm just going to start clipping right through the facing and the front, because we want to have a really nice turn area. And what I did right in here when I was stitching is I changed my stitch length to be super tiny, probably a 0.8, I think it is, so that I have tiny stitches going to the point. I turned tiny stitches coming away, and then back to a normal stitch length. I just feel like that adds a little bit of security when we have points like this. And then just continue to clip in the curved areas around You can either clip in the same spot with your facing or a different spot, but basically clip it so that when it turns, we're going to have a very nice even curve all the way around the inside of your neck. So, and the other thing I wanted to check too is here are the seams that match. So when you're laying one to the left side and one to the right side, it's great because your seams, once you turn this right side out, they really do look very tidy and very nice. So continue clipping around here, and then what we're going to do is understitch. We want to make sure that the neck facing stays away from the main portion of your garment. So we're gonna press, or, you know, I don't think I'm gonna press with the knit, but just simply finger press and top stitch or understitch, however you want to put it, right along the inside of the neckline, and it will naturally pull your facing to the wrong side of your garment. Okay, the next portion of our garment construction is a bit tricky, but definitely read the pattern a couple of times and look at all the illustrations. But I want to show you here how to finish the arm opening, because we're not using bias tape or anything like that to secure it. What we're going to use is the facing itself, kind of like we did in the center. We're going to stitch it and then turn it around, and it'll have a very nice completed edge to it. But it is a little tricky. So here we go. What we're going to do, I'm going to describe it first and then I'll show you. But we're going to roll this portion of the garment over to this side. We're going to take the facing from underneath and we're going to pull it around so that we can stitch right sides together here, either serging them or stitching them on your sewing machine to complete the arm opening. So here we go. So we're going to and you have to kind of do this tight because we don't have a lot of space to work with, but simply roll this really as tight as you can. And I may have to do this more than once just to make sure I'm doing this the right way, and try to keep everything as flat as possible here, but keep rolling. Okay, now we're right over here to the shoulder, but remember one thing, we need to be able to access this little piece of the shoulder. Okay, so let's leave it here for now. And now we're going to take our facing and we're going to pull it over to the other side, pull this over to the other side, as well as this opening here. So now what we see on our table is the right side of the garment. This is the right side of our facing. And so now we're going to pull this over. Okay, you see what we're doing here? And I'm going to simply pin this and just get it in place, but we're pinning, matching our notches right here. We're going to match our shoulder and keep this fabric tucked inside. Now, this, I guess the tricky part too is don't over pull, don't over stretch your fabric because it is a knit. So you're working with a knit that's gonna move on you a little bit anyway, but try not to stretch the fabric too much while you're pulling. If you need to be tighter when you do the rolling across your garment, start a little tighter. And I might want to do it tighter when I do the other side here, because we have to do the same thing for both sides. Of course, we have two arms. And there's another notch. We need to match our notches right there. I'm just doing this to make sure. And right in the middle. And use as many pins as you're comfortable using. I think just to make sure that everything is in place, keeping your other portion of your garment away from you would be good as well. So just keep that out of the way, and everything lines up beautifully. And remember, don't stretch this way, just place gently. I shouldn't be talking so gently. It is a sturdy cotton jersey knit, but still, we don't want to stretch. And that's also, it's good to interface as well. It's a good stabilizer right there. And okay, so now we have this pinned, and the other side. Okay, everything looks flat, and you can feel inside here, you can feel where the rest of your garment is. And so let's keep that out of the way while you either stitch your seam allowance, which is 3/8 of an inch, or if you feel comfortable, go ahead and serge it. I am probably going to serge mine, but maybe not. Maybe I'll stitch it. So we'll see what happens. But that is what we do to get this arm closed. Well, I decided to serge it. So that is what it looks like after you serge the edge of your arm. And we're going to turn this right side out as best as we can. So we'll see how this turns out. Just gently pull, kind of unfurl, and we will pull this through. Okay, so this one is not finished, and this one here, if I can get this from being so curled up, here we go, is finished, sort of. Oh goodness. I think I'm just too twisted here. There, can we get this out? There is the, okay, one more. There. Oh my goodness. There we go. Okay, so now here's the front, and your seam attaching your facing to the main garment is now sewn. And the next step is, if you can, is to understitch, taking your seam allowance here and sewing, starting at the opening, and try to understitch as far as you can up to, because it's going to get very tight here, but as far as you would like. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not do that, but I think I might try and see what that looks like. But before I do any of that, I'm going to, again, we have to finish the other side. So let's lay this out. Okay, so this side is finished. So what we want to do this time is we're going to roll, starting with this side, and tightly roll across the body of the garment, taking this across, and we need to leave a good portion so that we can sew our seam like we did before. Okay, so let's get about to here. I have a little bit of bulk here, and I learned from last time that you need to definitely have it tight. Now let's take our facing, and we're going to pull it under, okay? So now we have the arm, main of the body, here's of our facing. Got to get this out here. See, that's the facing. So now we're going to pull this across, and we're going to pin this again like we did on the other side, and pin all the way around, stitch or serge, and then turn it right side out one more time. And if you want to do the understitching, definitely do that to secure and hold the facing towards the inside of your garment. And then we'll come back and we're going to do our sides. So we're getting close to putting this whole thing together. So I decided to do the understitching, and I will tell you that it was not as easy to get very far underneath on the side that has the first pleat, so your left side of your garment, and it was so much easier everywhere else. So I did get pretty close, the understitching here, up to about, little ways away there and over here. So definitely take the time to do the understitching on your arm, your sleeve openings here, your arm openings here, because it will allow the knit to relax back towards the inside of your garment and just give it that nice finished look. But over on the side here, where we do have the beautiful detail of this square in the front, I could only get, I don't know, 3/4 of the way up before I was it was too bulky right in here to get my foot, my presser foot up into there. So I did stop there because I didn't want to stretch anything. But on the back side of that, I was able to go all the way up to almost the center shoulder seam there. So do take the time to try that and just go slow. And what I ended up doing is I ended up positioning all of the fabric right in front of me underneath the presser foot, and it was able to just kind of slowly move it through, and it was perfect. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to stitch up our side seams, right sides together. I'm going to serge mine. I'm not going to stitch them and then finish the edges. I am going to serge it, and I'll show you what that looks like, but I think I might actually just put it on and hem it up. So I think this is just going to be so cute. So keep going and keep finishing your garment. So as you can see, finishing the construction of this tank top was a little tricky, but yet I was actually surprised how easy it was to be able to situate the fabric in front of me on my sewing machine to do the understitching on the arm area. I didn't think that was going to be very easy, but it was easier than I thought. And then I did finish my side seams with a serger, so I did do the serge stitch. And I did not change my serger over to a cover stitch to finish the hem, but I will definitely take the time to do that next time. I just simply serged the edge, I pressed it under 3/4 of an inch, and then I top stitched. So that is how I finished the hem of this particular tank top. So again, itch to stitch pattern, Sentosa Tank. And in our description below, I have included links to our website, links to the fashion pack for this particular tank, and also links to the Itch to Stitch website for you to grab your own version of this tank top, as well as take a look at all her other patterns. If you're not familiar with her, definitely follow Itch to Stitch as well. And I hope you make a lot of these tank tops for the summer. It's great to wear alone or under a cardigan or a jacket. So I hope you enjoyed this, and give us some comments also, and enjoy making your own version, and follow us in the next group of videos that we'll come up with, and have a great rest of your weekend.